And we have a former colleague of ours watching, Richard. It's Pat Spray. Uh, Go check out on YouTube Native Life. A very great show that he has been doing until he had to like move from across the country and has been down for a while now. But otherwise, a very great show you should go check out. He stated, if the US has been punished for war crimes like Germany was punished for World War I during an economic downturn, then a strongman scenario would have been inevitable. So I think what Pat is trying to comment here is that a strongman scenario today would have been inevitable if the US had been punished for war crimes after 2008. And I actually, on the face of it, that seems very, very plausible. I mean, an economic downturn and then put on top of that, hey, pay all this debt and put all, yeah.
Yeah, the U.S. economy has the same way that they were able to extract so much wealth from the middle and lower classes is the same way that we're able to somewhat potentially stave off that strongman scenario and the pressures from the economic pressures that would be could have been a result of penalties from war crimes, because we are in a pretty dire economic situation in general. But the whole way we got here was basically a way for us to keep it out of sight and out of mind. And so by keeping new cell phones coming out and new apps and programs and all these things, we feel like our lives are getting better. We feel like we're getting more value out of our money while we're getting less money and we're getting less value out of it. And
Mm-hmm.
we're running up debt and credit in order to
Yep.
subsidize that lack of wages. But we are rapidly approaching that time, but at the same time, our election system every 4 years results in that the timing can only line up so much. Even with social media accelerating everything, there's only so much that can happen in 4 years, or that, and not just that, but then also that we still have to wait 4 years for a new president to come about.
Mm-hmm. Well, and while on the topic of the economy, we have to remember that when you watch corporate media and they talk about the economy, even many independent media outlets also make this mistake, is that they equate Wall Street with the U.S. economy. If Wall Street is doing well, then the U.S. is doing well, and that is not true. Wall Street has, they are certainly a part of the U.S. economy, but Wall Street has actually created a small bubble called Wall Street in which they live. And they have, of course, what they do there can have enormous ramifications throughout the country because Wall Street has plugged itself into the entire country. So they the bad things that happen to Wall Street also happen to the rest of the country. But they have somehow managed to cut off all the good things happening on Wall Street from actually funneling to the rest of the country. So they, yeah. So, yeah, Wall Street is a phenomenon unto itself. I believe it will be a historic and economic study of like on par of the Great Depression. There will be a study of how Wall Street did this at some point because it simply cannot go on. It's either you lay down your bundles of cash and stop aiming them at me, or I get a pitchfork. I mean, it's it's right about that time. I mean, most of us, as you say, are caught up in gadgets and how sleek and nice the Mac looks and how I can get a new computer every 3 months and I can get a flat screen TV in every bedroom. And so we live in our own little bubble of, hey, we're still suburban, we're still middle class, we're still doing great, it's still America, it's still a democracy, it's still so many things, but it isn't. What you're holding is dust in your hands and you're saying it's a nice meal. And that hasn't that realization hasn't occurred to a lot of people that they're being screwed. And if they're not being screwed, they're about to be.
Yeah.
It,
But and it's a
You want to
matter
go
of where you fall on that socioeconomic ladder, in which or if you want like the flood line, if you will, and so a lot of people are underwater,
yeah.
and looking for anything that's floating. And there's other groups of people that are still sitting in their houses on stilts, thinking that's going to be enough. But the plan is to worry about the people on the 80th floor penthouses, and so it's not a problem for them until they realize, well, wait a minute, if the bottom 40 stories are flooded, how is our service staff going to get to us? And so, I
Oh
mean,
my God, that was
that's
amazing.
basically the Great Depression, where they had so much wealth concentrated up at the very top that when it finally broke, everything had to fall apart before it finally dawned on them. Wait a minute, us hoarding this whatever unconscionable amount of wealth is not only is it just ethically and morally kind of questionable, at least it's functionally impossible. Like
Yeah.
the system will break down. We're too good at taking too much,
Yeah.
and as long as we're this good and we don't give anything back, the whole thing will collapse.
Yep.